human growth hormone, GH. You're also looking at oncology drugs, ones that are very hard to purchase with the prescription and very expensive. So sometimes people try to take shortcuts to it. There's also a lot of countries that do a lot of compounding itself. And traditionally, then we see a lot of those potential counterfeits coming from those areas.
Without supplies, there's no surgery. Without products, there's no patient care. Welcome to Power Supply, the healthcare supply chain podcast focused on helping you navigate the intricacies of logistics, purchasing, contracting, and supplier relationships. Each episode, we speak with healthcare executives, supply chain leaders, and innovative entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the loading dock to strategic sourcing, from buyers to the C-suite, and across the enterprise, we tackle the real-life issues impacting the healthcare supply chain. Whether you're tuning in for conversation or inspiration, we're glad you're here. You're just in time to hear it from the source and stock up on insight. So sit back and plug into Power Supply.
On this episode of Power Supply, we'll speak with Vinny Minhas. He is a sales professional with a great deal of experience in counterfeiting. We're going to be locking in on pharmaceutical counterfeiting. And we've had a few conversations like this, Hayes, recently, but today's is going to be really, really interesting. I think people just don't even realize what's flooding the market these days.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I think you need to stick around because you're going to learn some facts and figures that you had no idea existed. So come on and enjoy and listen to Vinny.
All right, everybody, stay with us. We're going to be right back with Vinny after a short break.
I'm Hayes Walter.
This is Gary Skinner.
And I'm Justin Poulin.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Power Supply.
Joining us now, Vinny Minhas. He's a VP and head of sales with extensive experience in counterfeiting. And specifically, we're going to be talking today about pharmaceutical counterfeiting and how to kind of keep those bad actors at bay. Vinny, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, Vinny's the expert. He was telling me offline, Justin, he knows all kinds of things, not only about pharmaceuticals, but like anything that's counterfeit. So this is going to go a lot of different ways, I think, but hopefully I'll stay on track.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, counterfeits is something that affects almost every single industry and its impacts everywhere without you even realizing it. Everything you see and touch and you look around is being counterfeited at some point. So it's definitely an interesting industry. It keeps me going and it keeps me intrigued. I love it.
Can you give us a scope of how big of industry it is, the counterfeit market? I guess, is there any way to know?
There's a lot of assumptions that are out there, and there's, a lot of case studies that have also been done. But the industry, the counterfeit industry, is about $5 trillion and growing from that point on as well. So it's a very lucrative industry. And the problem is there's not too many repercussions that are also met. People often describe it's more profitable than selling drugs, and you get less repercussions from it as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I can only imagine. And it's in it's from jewelry to cars to pharmaceuticals. It's everything, correct?
It touches every single aspect of it. I think before I came into brand protection, I didn't realize how broad it is, but everywhere you look, it's being affected. I even spoke to a pen company the other day that their pens were being counterfeited itself. And there were luxury pen items, obviously, but nonetheless, counterfeiters don't stop at anything. If they can make money off of it, they're going to go ahead and fake the products. There's going to be intellectual property theft that surrounds it.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Vinny, what's your background? How do you even get into an industry like this?
I think I got into it by mistake. So I had the better part of the last decade I've spent in brand protection, watching it evolve. But previous to that, I've always held a sales role, a go-to-market role. So I really shaped organizations on how they go to market, what support and resources that you need to get there. Today, I lead sales for an AI brand protection company, even previous to all the different roles that go-to market areas, just category defining companies in that space. But outside of this, I also write a lot on LinkedIn about counterfeit economics, platform accountabilities, policy shifts for the platforms itself, and co-chair for content on IACC.
Well, we're going to learn a lot about IACC here in a second, but what I love about your approach is here you are, you're speaking on counterfeiting, but you're leading a sales org. And I think let's just pause for a second and talk about, that's what I think is required of sales today. Like you can't just, kind of do your run of the mill, value prop and pitch, right? Like you have to be a subject matter expert, especially in, a niche industry like the one you're in today to really succeed, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's not about order taking. Those days are gone. When companies come to you for brand protection services, they want an expert in this space. So it's very important when you speak into other legal personas, other general counsels of big organizations, they're going to trial and test you on your knowledge and the capabilities of what your enforcement actions are. So you have to know the ins and outs of platform policies, what's accepted as takedowns, and then also jurisdictional issues, then also regional issues as well. So you really have to know it inside out. It's not just about, hey, pick a package, sign up, and this is where it'll get down to it. They want to get into the nitty and gritty of what's possible and what's not possible, because there are some limitations.
This would be helpful, maybe just for me, more importantly. Let's just say we pick a brand, a watch brand that's really well known, that's a common knockoff counterfeit. What repercussions and how do they go after the bad guys, the actors in this? Even though most of them are probably going to be overseas, how does that look just generally?
For brand protection to work correctly, there's a number of ways you could do it. There's been an evolution of how to attack counterfeits over a number of years. I think if you predate 2018, everything enforcement actions were majorly done outside of the online platforms. They were looking to do raids. They were going up and down Chinatown in different areas that have counterfeits, locating potential warehouses. Where we've seen the evolution shift is now it's shifting towards online. From online, you still need to attach your offline. So the data that you learn from your online brand protection provider, you can actually take that for offline actions as well. And that's where I see a perfect mix of it. But when you think about brand protection, one, you have to make sure your intellectual properties are registered in the right categories and the right jurisdictions. Number two, you also want to register your IP with CBP so they could be at the front lines and potentially stop some containers that are coming in. And third, you also want to hit them on the online brand protection side of it too. So you want to identify potential fake websites, fake counterfeit listings on marketplaces, and then you want to action them out for takedowns. The fourth, some brands do incorporate as well, is Schedule A filings. You want to go after the pockets of these counterfeiters. So what you could actually do is file Schedule A cases in certain states. And from those Schedule A cases, you can have default judgments that automatically come to you in your favor, and they freeze the bank accounts and wallets that are online.
Interesting. I just don't know anything about that. This is fantastic. I love this.
Well, I think the way it fits in too is like we're talking about resiliency and people want to know, country of origin. They want to know the risk to the supply chain. And I feel like this is just one of those pieces that comes into play, is knowing who the counterfeiters are that might be out there that are bringing in a product that to your healthcare organization that isn't what it appears to be. And it's one thing maybe like with the watch, but we're talking about pharmaceuticals now. Yeah. So if there are medications that aren't even the right, drug, compound, they're not going to have the effectiveness and you're not going to treat the patient effectively, which I know we're going to jump in here. But before we do, you mentioned IACC and people can learn more if they want to at IACC. I know pharmaceutical companies care about protecting, they're making sure that counterfeiters aren't getting into the market. I know they care. We're going to talk to hospitals about why they should care, but there's an organization that is really trying to help with managing this. That's IACC. And you're the co-chair, Vinny? Like, how does that come about? And what's the role of the organization and specifically your role as the co-chair?
Yeah, of course. So IACC is actually one of the oldest and largest nonprofits dedicated to fighting counterfeits and piracy. It brings together brands, law enforcement, custom agencies and platforms, and service providers in one room, which is very rare in this industry and super important. The work happens in working groups, training programs for customs and law enforcement, and then the annual conference is really the marquee gathering for the community itself. So as co-chair on the content side, it helps shape the conversations that happen on stage. That means picking the topics that actually matter right now, recruiting the right voices from brands and platforms, and making sure the sessions push the field forward instead of rehashing what's already known. So this year I moderated a panel on AI and global enforcement, which felt exactly like the conversation the industry needed. But I can't take credit for this on my own. I serve as co-chair with several others as well.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like incredibly important work. Tell me why pharmaceutical companies are the most worried related to counterfeiting. Are they represented, at IACC? What's their involvement? And if so, you're obviously talking to them and you know what their concerns are.
Yeah, at IACC, pharmaceutical companies are definitely involved. Also, other organizations as well. A few things that keep pharma companies up at night is first is patient safety. Full stop. A counterfeit handbag is a problem, but a counterfeit GLP-1 or oncology drug can kill somebody. That changes the entire risk itself. Second is the explosion of unregulated channels, Telegram groups, TikTok shops, Instagram DMs, and gray market pharmacies that are actually known for real distribution networks, and patients are increasingly getting comfortable buying there. The third is reputational and regulatory exposure. When a fake version of your drug harms a patient, regulators, media, plaintiff attorneys don't always draw a clean line between the counterfeiter and the brand. So pharma companies are being forced to defend products they didn't make and didn't sell.
So you mentioned social media there. What do you mean TikTok shops? Like, what's that?
Tell us more. Do tell.
They got these great groups on Telegram and TikTok where they're really meeting the consumer where people are. And they're actually reaching the consumers that are most subtle. They're also meeting the consumers that are actually going to fall for these tricks itself. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it's an avenue to meet those. The same way brands and organizations meet their buyers on social media when they buy ads, the counterfeiters also reach them as well.
Which is incredibly interesting. But I would be curious on the pharmaceutical side. I actually have a pharmaceutical group, and occasionally counterfeiting does come up. But do you have a feel, Vinny, on the size and scope of the problem and the counterfeiting and pharmaceutical? And is it GLPs primarily, or what drugs are we talking about? And do you know the size of what that market could be?
The size of that market, it's really hard to put a full number to it. There's assumptions people have made and studies that have been done, but there's no firm numbers on it. I think when you think about pharmaceuticals, obviously the hot topic right now is GLP-1s. But obviously the pharmaceuticals are affecting other products as well. You're talking about products like for steroids, human growth hormone, GH. You're also looking at oncology drugs, ones that are very hard to purchase with the prescription and very expensive. So sometimes people try to take shortcuts to it. There's also a lot of countries that do a lot of compounding itself. And traditionally, then we see a lot of those potential counterfeits coming from those areas.
I wonder if rural communities are more impacted just because they're more resource constrained financially. Do you have any idea? Like if that is, like you said there, I think, consumers that are more susceptible. I'm thinking about those oncology drugs, how expensive they are. A lot of times there are patients who look at treatments outside of the US to try to control costs, especially when it's not covered by an insurance company. But I mean, ultimately, if they land in your ED, you're going to be treating that patient, and it may be that, something could have happened in terms of ingesting something that was toxic, right?
100% the possibility. And it definitely affects rural communities more. What it really comes down to is oftentimes they're not purchasing a counterfeit to your point, Justin, they're purchasing it because they think it's a real drug. And sometimes it's advertised as additional supplies that are left over from a treatment, or, someone that's used oncology drug and they passed away and their relative is now selling it. So you try to actually they humanize it as much as possible and pass it off as not as a counterfeit, but hey, my uncle was using this. Unfortunately, he passed away. I wish this could help others. So I just want to be able to give this to other people that need the drug at a cheaper price for ones that can't afford it.
So how's it getting into the market, Vinny? By any volume. So if I have a GLP or whatever, how is it going to be prescribed? How is that guy or gal going to buy it? Are they going not on the street corner, but is it through a website that they see on TikTok or whatever? And hey, you want to buy this drug, get it cheaper? Is it that type of thing? Or how does that really work practically?
There's a few different types of buyers out there. Ones that go out and seek it. And you can do quick searches. There's certain pharmacies in certain countries overseas that do a lot of compounding. And you can find websites that pertain and sell those sort of products. In addition, you're also using chat platforms like Telegram. Telegram's a chat platform that is not known for very much being compliant, but there are groups that are formed from there, and they're shopping around different drugs you could purchase. And there's even other products being sold like guns on those types of chats. So it's a very dangerous type of community it can become. But people will go to those platforms and then seek out a seller. They'll even go to certain other marketplace platforms and purchase it. In addition, there's also platforms like Reddit people will search upon, and they call it something called hidden links. And they'll actually have a picture of another product, but when you click into it and order the product, you receive something else in turn. For example, they'll have a picture of a handbag and they'll have the different colors. But then there's a coding that's being used and say, if you purchased a black purse in this size, this is the product that you'll actually receive. So they're going by multiple different ways to stay underneath the radar. Then there's also on social media, there's profiles that people create with no visibility of the brand name or drugs that are being created. It'll just have your personal name on there, and they'll have a preview of different drugs that you could purchase. Now, those types of profiles make it very difficult to track down because they're not keywords that are being used. There's no way to actually detect it. So the only way to detect it is using certain parts of AI where you can identify one profile. And from that one profile, you'll end up seeing their friends with other profiles that are also selling counterfeit pharmaceutical products. Now you're just going through the burrowing technology, right? So you find one, you find two, you find four, you find 8. And you keep going down those tracks. And then you take down those profiles. And the good thing is a lot of these platforms are very compliant when they're selling potential counterfeit goods or pharmaceutical goods that require prescriptions because it is against the law.
I have to think, I would never want to buy a counterfeit drug ever, but I'm curious, if I did, are they terrible? Are they what they say? In other words, are they real drugs? Do they have the right recipe, if you will?
Yeah, are they sugar powder in a capsule, or are they an actual active? Do they have active ingredients?
Yeah, I wonder if they're real drugs. Do you know that, Vinny? Or generally, are they?
Yeah, generally, sometimes they are real drugs, and it depends upon the different categories, right?
Yeah.
So we did some case studies and test purchases of testosterone-based products. You were getting testosterone, but what they were filling it was incredibly bad for your body, right? Sometimes they would have it like a filler of some sort of oil. So sometimes you're actually getting legitimate goods, and you're getting forms of testosterone. Problem is they have a lot of fillers, and they use the oil. So if you inject it, you might actually bubble up. And that's actually causes the issue. Second, they might say it's 200 milligrams of testosterone, but you might be getting 800 milligrams of testosterone.
Just don't know. Yeah.
Which is also a problem because now that can affect different parts of your bodily functions. It can affect your heart if you're using it too much. You could have other adverse effects like hair loss. And sometimes we've actually seen it's just nothing inside of it. There's no testosterone.
It's just inert.
In different levels and categories of it.
It's terrible. I would be scared to death of it, but I'd just be curious if some of them actually deliver real drugs or the real compound.
Yeah, I just wonder if they are getting into hospital pharmacies too.
Well, that's what I'm trying, and that's what I was asking the question. How are people purchasing these counterfeit drugs? And it's obviously, they're not getting it from the neighborhood, pharmacy or retail. So they're getting it online just without, I guess, obviously without any scripts or anything.
That is true. Now, there have been reports many years ago that they are propping up wholesalers and sometimes they're commingling legitimate products with fake products. Now, you could probably Google and it's happened in the last 7 to 10 years. You don't hear about too much of those cases too often because they try to keep it underneath the radar. But commingling is a term that actually occurs with all different counterfeit products. They'll put legitimate products with fake products. So when you do a test purchase on it, sometimes you received a real one, if you received a real one, and then you move on from that seller. But what about when you do receive a fake one? And that's where the problem lies.
All right. So how do third parties get involved in this? Assuming it's funded by the pharmaceutical companies, but at the same time, that's not their business, right? So they need to go to companies that do this for a business. So how does a third party get involved and sort of mitigate this risk and help manage it? Because my thought in the back of my mind is the reason that there's no commingling is because somebody's doing a good job at protecting everybody at a really high level, but there's only so much they can do to gatekeep the general consumer.
Yeah, and I'll touch upon pharmaceutical brands have excellent teams and big teams that go after. They have investigators. They have online teams that look at potential just counterfeits on platforms, but they supplement that with third-party providers. The reason is the internet is so vast. If you want to scale this with humans, you're going to be outnumbered because technology moves so quick. AI is moving at a rapid pace. And you could basically take AI companies and use their technologies to scour at a very fast rate of speed to complement the processes that you're already doing today. So supplementing what you're doing. So instead of you finding 100,000 counterfeits in 1 year when you're manually doing it with a team, you can find 10x that when you also use a provider. Then you have multiple data layers and data points that you're able to access. Instead of living in Excel documents and sheets, you can actually have a platform that can interpret those results, see what the trends are, and put an analysis on what the findings could be.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. All right, Vinny, we have talked about pharmaceuticals here, but particularly it came to light a lot during COVID of a lot of your disposable PPE products being counterfeit. Are you seeing a lot of other products on the healthcare side that are counterfeit? Is that still occurring at scale, or what's your experience there?
Yeah, we do. We see blood pressure machines, blood pressure monitors, seeing stethoscopes. Big problem with stethoscopes being counterfeited. There's a huge industry for it. Stethoscopes aren't cheap, especially some of the premium brand versions of it. But unfortunately, they have a huge problem. Now, you're getting a subpar product. And if that subpar product comes into a nursing patient's hands or somebody that's a nursing student or any sort of student, medical student, it can have a lot of impact because generally what's happening is practitioners have to purchase these products on their own. Now, they'll go on platforms to purchase those products. It's not handed out to them by the hospital. Oftentimes, they take it out of their own budget. So, unfortunately, it goes across many different products that healthcare professionals do use.
Any rule of thumb for supply chain execs out there about counterfeit products and maybe how they might determine or tell, let's say they get, I don't know, they order from somewhere. Is there any way that they would know or discern the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every brand has indicators of understanding what a genuine product looks like versus a non-genuine product. In addition to that, they'll have secret telltale signs they might embed into those products that can be a giveaway, whether that's invisible coding or invisible barcodes, or you might actually have to scan something to register the product. So there's different areas there's different ways you can authenticate different products. So if they do come across a counterfeit product, there are ways to understand whether it's a legitimate one or it's not.
And if they do, what do they do? Who do they report it to? Their distributor or what? What's their recourse, if any?
There's a number of different actions. One, if it's purchased from an online platform or website, they're looking to shut down that website or shut down that seller that's on that platform itself. If you're doing an online side, the buck really stops there. But most pharmaceutical brands or healthcare brands will take it a step further to understand where it's really coming from, to actually find out where the source is. And that's where a lot of intelligent work, investigation work comes in hand, test purchases comes in hand. And sometimes you have to file judgments or file lawsuits against some of these sellers to hopefully understand where the source potentially comes from. Or it could be alternative investigations that they carry out for a period of time.
Interesting. Would blockchain play a role in any of this?
Yes, it will. And there have been some mumblings on how they can do it, but I have not seen it come into practice at the moment.
I would think it would for some of the higher end products, expensive products outside of healthcare necessarily, but even drugs in certain situations. It seems to me that might be a good way to track it from beginning to end.
Absolutely.
So what do the programs look like? Like, how do you protect the companies and the patients? Like detailed, like, do the pharmaceutical companies, are they paying for some programs? Like the third parties, like there's this program, or are they more like a collective effort?
It's both. So the companies, like pharmaceutical brands, have a collective group. They work together, and they also give supplemental data and share trends with what they're seeing. Because one problem can help out the other problem. So sharing that is going to be very important. They also buy services from different providers, and they are paying for it. So they have budgets set aside for this. And quite often it's from anywhere from a few $100,000 all the way to a couple $1 million per year, because they want to be proactive in protecting their brand and consumers at that level.
All right, Vinny, this has been really interesting. I mean, I guess on one hand, I'm glad that there's organizations like IACC out there where the hospitals don't have to worry so much about this happening or commingling as much. But I think, even just as a general consumer, I think there might even be some advocacy around that, education to the community, making sure that they're aware that this can happen. I'd say, I get a couple of medications routinely, just because I'm getting to be an old man, Hayes. And
I'm not going to ask what those medications are.
Yeah. But nobody's ever said, be careful where you buy this stuff. And so I can see like a real advocacy, from prescribers, making sure that people are super aware, of some of the risks of that, especially as they try to manage their health. And maybe there are programs out there. It'd be great if somebody listening works in the hospital and knows, maybe an advocacy program that they have. We'd love to hear about it. But,
yeah, absolutely.
But Vinny, what else have we not talked about? Anything that we should cover before we wrap up?
I think if there's one thing I don't want listeners to take away, it's that pharma counterfeiting has fundamentally changed over the last few years. It's no longer just a website problem. It's a social media problem. It's a messaging app problem and a patient trust problem. The good news is there's tools, data, and cross-industry collaborations that have caught up in a real way. Between AI-driven detection, smarter partnerships, between brands and platforms and groups like ISCC bringing everyone at the same table, we're finally in a position to disrupt some of those networks instead of just reacting towards it. The brands that lean in now are going to be the ones who protect both their patients and their franchises. The ones that don't will keep paying for it, one headline at a time.
That's nice. That's a good line. Yeah.
Hopefully no headlines.
Yeah, no headlines.
Fingers crossed, no headlines. No headlines. Yeah.
Well said. I like that.
Yeah.
Only headlines you want to hear is how a brand has proactively taken down and dismantled the network. And that shows the proactivity there.
Well, Vinny, great interview. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and keep up the good work out there.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Justin and Hayes.
That was Vinny Minhas, VP and Head of Sales with experience in counterfeiting. And Hayes, interesting conversation. I mean, we've had a couple of tangential, I'd say, discussions around counterfeiting, but today we kind of locked in on pharmaceuticals. And while it does seem like the risk in the acute setting is really low, I mean, just thinking about like we got off the air and he was talking about the nutraceutical market, and there's probably tons of us out there that are buying, vitamins and, protein powders and things like that. And it turns out there's a lot of counterfeiting going on in that space as well. So interesting conversation today.
I learned a lot. And to your point, even some of the stuff offline, I learned, you just got to be very careful, very, very aware. He suggested always going to the manufacturer's website and not necessarily through the large retail and buying them. But it was just fascinating. To your point, I don't know that, the acute care pharmaceutical side is a massive problem, but it certainly was for all the stuff online. So he did a great job. Well done, Benny.
Yeah. Well, we're all here to take care of the patients. And if the patient is securing medications that don't actually serve the need, that means more hospital readmissions. And ultimately, somebody is paying the bill. So it's great to know that there are companies out there that are doing their best to prevent that from happening. And while we may not be talking about it today, it sure sounds like with technology evolving the way it is, it's becoming a problem that is harder and harder to control. So maybe 5 years from now, we'll be like, oh yeah, remember that episode of Power Supply? Boy, we didn't even know what was coming. So on behalf of Hayes and myself, everybody, thanks for listening to this episode of Power Supply.
Bam! Da-da! Boom, boom.
Hit the symbol. All right.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Power Supply. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on your iPhone or Android. Simply search for Power Supply in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@powersupplymedia.net. We look forward to hearing from you.